Today I'm going to reveal the 8 hidden tricks narcissists use when they realize they can no longer control you. These are psychological tactics Carl Jung himself warned about, and if you don't recognize them, you can easily get trapped again. Here are the 8 stages I'm going to break down for you. Number 1, the last dirty trick. Number 2, strength shaming. Number 3, manufactured vulnerability. Number 4, the trap of nostalgic manipulation. Number 5, crisis as control. Number 6, the guilt anchor. Number 7, the illusion of shared pain. Number 8, breaking free and choosing authenticity. These are the exact patterns narcissists follow, step by step. If you miss even one of them, you might fall back into their cycle. So stay with me till the end of this video as I explain each of these in detail, because once you see the pattern, they can never control you again. Number 1, the last trick of the narcissist. When you finally begin to grow stronger, when the fog of confusion starts lifting and you no longer respond to manipulation the way you once did, something unsettling happens. The narcissist does not simply let go. They don't shrug and walk away defeated. Instead, they prepare what psychologists describe as a final, calculated maneuver, one last attempt to pull you back into their grip. Carl Jung's insights into the human shadow reveal that narcissists are terrified of this exact moment, the moment when their influence no longer works on you. It's important to understand that narcissists do not fear rejection in the way most people think. What truly shakes them is the realization that their victim has become emotionally and psychologically stronger. Jung wrote that the ego, when inflated, survives by projecting weakness onto others. A narcissist thrives on this cycle, maintaining a false sense of superiority while keeping you dependent on their validation. But the instant you stop playing that game, when you set boundaries, when you refuse to bend, when you choose your own path, an internal alarm goes off inside them. Jung described this turning point as a crisis of power inversion. It's the psychological earthquake that happens when the energy dynamic flips, when the source of supply begins to resist. At that moment, the narcissist faces a terrifying truth: their mask of control is breaking. And instead of accepting defeat, they design a trap. This trap is not obvious at first. It won't look like open hostility or blatant manipulation. It appears subtle, even innocent. They may disguise it as concern, as nostalgia, or as vulnerability. But the intention is always the same: to lure you back into the role that once fed their ego. Jung believed that this is the precise moment when the narcissist becomes most dangerous, because their tactics evolve. They stop attacking your weaknesses and start targeting your very strength, turning your healing journey into a weapon against you. And if you don't recognize this pattern early enough, you risk falling into the same cycle you worked so hard to escape. Number 2, the psychology behind the mask. To understand why narcissists refuse to release their grip, you have to step into the hidden layers of their psychology. Carl Jung believed that much of human behavior is driven by the shadow self, the parts of us we deny, suppress, or bury because they feel too painful to confront. For narcissists, this shadow is enormous. Behind their charm, confidence, or superiority lies a deep, unacknowledged emptiness. And instead of healing it, they build an identity that feeds off others. Jung explained that this inflated ego demands constant proof of dominance. The narcissist cannot sit in silence with themselves because silence would force them to face the void inside. They need an audience, a supply, a person to absorb their projections. That's where you come in. When you were still seeking approval, when you wanted to be loved, when you doubted your worth, you unknowingly provided exactly what they craved: endless validation. But once you begin to heal, once you start standing in your truth, you no longer fit their design. You shift from being a willing participant in their game to a mirror reflecting their weakness. Jung observed that this moment, when the victim refuses to carry the projection any longer, triggers what he called a psychic confrontation. The narcissist feels exposed, stripped of control, and desperate to regain their position of power. This desperation often emerges in subtle ways. They might start with criticism wrapped in concern: "You've changed, and not in a good way." Or they may accuse you of selfishness when you begin setting healthy boundaries. Jung called this strategy strength reversal, where your progress becomes twisted into a flaw. The narcissist cannot afford for you to see your healing as strength, so they reframe it as a weakness. It's here that their manipulation takes on a more insidious form. They are no longer fighting to dominate who you were, they are fighting to dismantle who you've become. And unless you see through the disguise, their shadow will reach for you once again, trying to pull you back into the cycle you worked so hard to escape. Number 3. The shift from weakness to strength. When you are uncertain, fragile, or constantly seeking reassurance, the narcissist thrived. That version of you was easy to mold, easy to guilt, and easy to keep under their influence. But the moment you began to rise, when you discovered your voice, set boundaries, and started believing in your own worth, the entire balance changed. Carl Jung described this transformation as the individuation process, the journey of becoming your authentic self. And nothing threatens a narcissist more than watching someone escape the role they created for them. Jung's writings explain that the narcissist lives in a state of borrowed power. Their sense of strength isn't real, it depends entirely on keeping others small. When you were weak, you fed their illusion. But when you grew stronger, you unintentionally revealed the emptiness at their core. This creates what Jung termed a power inversion crisis. Suddenly, the narcissist feels like prey in a game where they were once the hunter. Rather than accept this shift, they launch a new phase of psychological warfare. At first, it comes disguised as concern. They tell you, you've become cold, when in reality you've just learned to protect yourself. They say, you're too aggressive, when all you've done is speak with confidence. Jung called this tactic strength shaming. It's designed to make you doubt the very qualities that have set you free. What makes this so dangerous is its precision. The narcissist does not attack random traits. Instead, they target the exact areas where you've grown the most. If you've built resilience, they'll call you unfeeling. If you've learned independence, they'll call you selfish. Every insult is calculated to reverse your progress and drag you back into dependence. And here lies the cruel paradox: the more progress you make, the more vicious the attack becomes. Jung believed this moment reveals the narcissist's greatest fear, not that you will abandon them, but that you will fully outgrow them. Your strength exposes their weakness, and for someone who lives in denial of their own shadow, that exposure feels unbearable. The result is predictable: they escalate. And what comes next is even more manipulative than strength shaming. Number 4. The trap of nostalgic manipulation. Once strength shaming fails, the narcissist does not stop. Instead, they change tactics. If attacking your growth doesn't pull you back into submission, they reach for something even more subtle, something Jung warned about in his writings: the pull of the past. This tactic is often called nostalgic manipulation. On the surface, it sounds harmless, like longing for the good old days. But in reality, it is a psychological weapon designed to make you question your transformation. The narcissist begins to romanticize who you used to be. They might say, "I miss the old you," or "Remember when you were happier before you started all this self-improvement?" At first, these comments may sound like affection, as if they are cherishing memories. But Jung believed this is a projection strategy, an attempt to time travel psychologically and pull you back into the identity that once served their ego. They are not missing you, they are missing the controllable version of you. This can be especially dangerous because it appeals to your own sense of nostalgia. You might begin to second-guess yourself: was I really happier back then? Was life simpler before all this change? Jung explained that the psyche often clings to familiar patterns, even unhealthy ones, because the unknown feels threatening. The narcissist exploits this weakness, trying to convince you that your progress is the reason for conflict, when in fact it is their loss of control that fuels the tension. What makes nostalgic manipulation so effective is its emotional disguise. Unlike direct criticism, which can be identified more easily, nostalgia feels warm, comforting, even loving. It lowers your defenses and makes you more vulnerable to suggestion. Jung believed this form of manipulation is one of the most dangerous because it bypasses logic and speaks directly to your emotional memory. If you are not careful, you may find yourself craving the very version of yourself you fought so hard to outgrow. And that is exactly the trap. By pulling you into longing for the past, the narcissist derails your future. But when nostalgia doesn't work, they escalate again, and the next strategy is darker still. Number 5. The weapon of manufactured vulnerability. When nostalgia fails, the narcissist reaches for their most dangerous strategy, one Carl Jung indirectly described in his exploration of human shadow behaviors: manufactured vulnerability. At this stage, they realize criticism and longing for the past can no longer shake you. So, instead of appearing powerful, they suddenly appear weak. They present themselves as fragile, desperate, or broken, knowing that your empathy, the very quality that makes you strong, can also be turned into a trap. This tactic is both brilliant and cruel. The narcissist carefully observes you over time. They know exactly what tugs at your heart, what triggers your compassion, and what makes you abandon your own boundaries to help someone else. Jung noted that shadow-driven personalities keep a mental ledger of others' emotional weaknesses. And when the narcissist feels control slipping away, they open that ledger and strike. It begins with subtle crises. They might suddenly reveal a health scare, financial trouble, or family drama. Their timing is never random. These emergencies almost always coincide with the moments when you are standing in your power, when you are finally free, confident, or thriving. By presenting themselves as helpless, they force you into a role reversal. You go from boundary setter to caretaker, from survivor to rescuer. But here's the chilling part: many of these crises are either exaggerated or manufactured entirely. Jung observed that the manipulative ego often sabotages itself just to create new opportunities for attention. A narcissist may destabilize their job, damage a relationship, or even neglect their own health, knowing that the resulting chaos will draw you back in. They aren't just asking for help, they're asking you to sacrifice your newfound strength to give them control again. The brilliance of manufactured vulnerability lies in its believability. Unlike direct attacks, which reveal hostility, this strategy hides behind innocence. They may even cry, break down, or beg. And because you are compassionate, you question yourself: what if they really need me? What if I abandon them now and something terrible happens? This is the crossroads Jung warned about. If you step back into the caretaker role, the cycle begins again. If you resist, the narcissist realizes their grip is nearly broken, and that's when they prepare their final moves. Number 6. Guilt as a weapon. Once the narcissist has stepped into the role of the fragile victim, their next move is to weaponize your compassion. Carl Jung wrote that one of the most powerful forces in the psyche is guilt, because guilt can override logic and weaken the will. Narcissists know this instinctively. They don't need to argue with your strength, they simply need to make you feel responsible for their suffering. The strategy often begins subtly. "I know you've been busy, but I really needed you and you weren't there." Or, "Ever since you've changed, I feel so alone." These words are not random, they are carefully designed to strike at the heart of your empathy. Jung observed that when the shadow self cannot face its own emptiness, it projects that burden onto others. The narcissist projects responsibility for their well-being onto you, creating the illusion that without your sacrifice, they will collapse. This is what makes guilt such an effective trap. It doesn't demand you surrender directly, it persuades you to surrender willingly. You tell yourself, "Maybe I'm being too harsh. Maybe I should give them one more chance." And with that thought, the cycle begins again. The danger is that every act of caretaking slowly erodes the progress you've made. Each just this once chips away at your boundaries. Jung warned that repeating old patterns allows the shadow to regain dominance. For narcissists, this means every time you bend, they re-establish control. But here lies the most sinister aspect: many narcissists deliberately engineer situations that generate guilt. They may neglect responsibilities, sabotage relationships, or create crises, knowing that you will feel compelled to clean up the mess. Jung noted that this self-sabotage is not unconscious, it is a strategy of avoidance. By making their pain your responsibility, they never have to face their own. And here is the truth you must hold on to: their suffering is not proof of your failure. It is proof of their refusal to grow. Recognizing this distinction is what separates compassion from self-destruction. But if guilt doesn't work, the narcissist still has one final card to play, an even more manipulative illusion designed to shatter your confidence completely. Number 7. The illusion of shared pain. When guilt begins to lose its grip, narcissists escalate to their final illusion: shared pain. This is where they attempt to blur the line between your struggles and theirs, convincing you that the two of you are bound together by suffering. Carl Jung observed that the psyche often resists individuation, the process of becoming fully yourself, because separation feels like loss. Narcissists exploit this fear by claiming that your independence is not only hurting them, but destroying the bond you once had. They may say things like, "We're both broken, you just don't want to admit it," or "You think you're healed, but deep down you're as damaged as me." These words are engineered to shake your confidence in your growth. Jung wrote that projection is the ego's favorite weapon. It refuses to face its own shadow by casting it onto someone else. In this stage, the narcissist projects their woundedness onto you, making your strength appear like another form of weakness. The trap here is subtle but dangerous. If you start to believe them, you unconsciously shrink yourself. You begin to doubt your progress, questioning whether your healing is real. This creates an opening for the narcissist to re-enter as your equal, not in genuine partnership, but in mutual dysfunction. In truth, what they want is not connection but control, dressed up as shared experience. Jung believed this dynamic is one of the most destructive because it masquerades as intimacy. Instead of confronting their own emptiness, the narcissist drags you back into it. Instead of allowing you to rise, they pull you down so you both remain stuck in the shadow together. And if you accept this illusion, you sacrifice the very freedom you fought so hard to claim. But here lies the turning point. If you can recognize shared pain as manipulation rather than truth, you break the spell. Jung reminded us that authenticity cannot be faked. Your growth is real. Their illusion is not. And once you see the difference, the narcissist's final weapon loses its power. Number 8, breaking free and choosing authenticity. This is the moment Carl Jung believed every individual must face, the choice between living in the shadow of another's control or stepping fully into the light of authenticity. By now, the narcissist has tried everything: strength shaming, nostalgic manipulation, manufactured vulnerability, guilt, even the illusion of shared pain. Each tactic is designed to keep you trapped in their orbit, feeding their ego at the expense of your freedom. But Jung's teachings remind us of a powerful truth: the ability to recognize manipulation is the beginning of liberation. True strength does not mean you never feel compassion, guilt, or doubt. It means you can see these feelings clearly without allowing them to dictate your choices. Jung called this differentiated compassion, the capacity to care for others without sacrificing your own becoming. When the narcissist collapses into crisis, you can feel empathy without confusing it for responsibility. When they pull on nostalgia, you can honor your past without returning to it. When they claim shared pain, you can acknowledge their suffering without surrendering your own growth. Every time you resist, you prove what Jung emphasized again and again: their power was never real. It existed only as long as you gave it permission. Once you stand in your own truth, their strategies become transparent, their manipulations predictable, their crises less convincing. The shadow loses its grip the moment it is named. And so the privilege of a lifetime, as Jung said, is to become who you truly are. The narcissist's final dirty trick works only if you forget that. But once you see the pattern, you understand that their desperation is not proof of your weakness, it is evidence of your strength. They fight hardest when they are losing. Your journey is not about proving them wrong, but about proving yourself right, about living authentically, setting boundaries, and refusing to shrink. Because the day you no longer bend to their control is the day you are finally free.